Hello everybody, and you're very welcome along to this week's Transfer Talk podcast here on the Anfield Agenda. I'm your host Craig, and joining me as always, I've got Christian and Chris. Gentlemen, I thought this was going to be a week where I wouldn't have much to talk about with the World Cup being on, but we're after putting together a pretty packed agenda. So look, as always, we'll just get straight into it. Christian, Emre Can has finally signed for Juventus after what seems like the most protracted discussions I can remember for a footballer.
Yeah, I don't know what they have been smoking there in the Juventus boardroom, but I've been reading the news that he's about to have a medical next week for 6 months now, basically.
He looks pretty good in the Juventus shirt, I'll give him that much.
Well, many do. It's a good-looking shirt, but it's time to move on from this saga. I kind of think it's good that it's now has been done and we can stop talking about a medical next week.
Yeah, it has been going on a long time. And Chris, it's looking like it's a 4-year deal for Emre Can with a rumoured signing bonus of in and around €16 million. You know what, Chris? I can understand why people let the contract run down now.
You can't you? And also on top of that, it looks like he's earning somewhere in the region of 220,000 a week. That would be in English pounds as well. So it's
good work if you can get it.
Well, would we pay off that really for him compared to what our top earners earn? I can kind of see why we weren't prepared to meet his demands if that's the kind of money. He would have known, his agent would have known exactly what was on the table from Juventus in terms of a signing on fee and a weekly income. So we were never in the race to keep his signature there. I think he was always gone. And fair play, didn't kick up a fuss, played his games, gave 100% when he did. Now he's gone. That's the end of it. We move on.
Yeah, I pretty much back your sentiments there. He was a thorough professional during his time at Liverpool Football Club. He never put a foot out of line. I can understand, as you said, why the club would possibly not want to pay more as a signing on bonus for him than they did to originally buy him. It would be like buying the player twice, perhaps, if he wanted to renegotiate his contract. Christian, another player who has left, well, he left the club a while ago, he was released, but John Flanagan has gone up and signed a 2-year contract with Rangers where he'll link back up with Stevie G and, of course, Gary McAllister.
I think it's a smart signing from Gerrard, actually. Flanagan has proved himself at the highest level. Gerrard and him seems to have a good connection as persons. Plus, Flanagan, because of what happened with his girlfriend and everything like that, he needed to get away from the city of Liverpool. And I think Glasgow Rangers perhaps have signed a player that will turn out to be much better than people might think.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, there were times during his Liverpool career where he looked fairly solid and he didn't really put a foot out of place. I remember the Arsenal game was one that stands out to me where he was dropped in and he played particularly well. He certainly wasn't one to shirk a tackle, Christian, so he'd probably be well able to handle himself in the Scottish League.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, we haven't seen yet what Steven Gerrard can do. We know that of his fantastic merits as a player and what he has done for Liverpool. But to come to Glasgow Rangers, he will be judged by one thing and one thing only, and that's points for Glasgow Rangers. Whatever he has done in the past will soon be forgotten if they don't win. And they want to challenge Celtic. And Brendan Rodgers has made Celtic become invincible in Scotland, which perhaps isn't the most difficult task, but still. But I think with the new signings that Gerrard has done, both with Diarra and Flanagan, and I also saw them signing another player a couple of weeks ago, I think he's building quite a solid team there for the Scottish Premier League, so to speak.
And for you, Chris, what do you reckon to John Flanagan going up and signing a 2-year deal, which, doesn't really scream that he's been back to the hilt there, but look, it is a 2-year deal. He's back in the professional game at a decent level and a fresh start.
Well, I mean, it was very public what he did to his girlfriend. So, a high-profile club and a high-profile manager like Gerrard taking him on is a big deal to him. It really is. It's massive. It's perhaps more than what you could have expected, especially when you give his recent form a thought, because he's not. Yeah, there was a period of time where he was in our first team, and we thought we had our right back slot sorted for the next 10 years, didn't we? We were calling him the Scouse Cafu, and although that was tongue in cheek, we genuinely did think he was, a top-notch right back. And then injuries and form kind of put him down the pecking order, saw him out of the club. Then he hit a low, didn't he? So he's in a very fortunate situation here, and he's got to grab this with both hands. So I think the 2-year deal is indicative of his situation personally and as a footballer as well. He's got to prove himself again. And I think it's at a big club like Rangers as well, he's got nowhere to hide, has he? So let's see what he does.
Be interested to see, Chris, and obviously we might never know this, but I'd be interested to know what type of wages he's on up there.
Well, they're not going to be massive. There's no secret that Rangers don't have a lot of money. Scottish football in general doesn't have a lot of money, which I think is perhaps why I would imagine he would earn more at a sort of a mid-level Premiership club than he would at Rangers, to be honest. I think it's just, like you say, it's just an opportunity, isn't it? He's been given. I don't think he's perhaps even looking at it from a financial point of view anyway, is he's looking at it from a football point of view. He's going to get first team games at a good level at a high profile club playing under Steven Gerrard. I think he's looking at this the right way. I think it's a good move for him. And it could be a good move for Rangers there as well, because if he can recapture the form that he had for Liverpool, they've got themselves a very good fullback there, haven't they?
Yeah, it could indeed be a very shrewd piece of business by Steven Gerrard. Obviously, it was going to be evident that he might come back and take a few players from his Liverpool days or his Liverpool links. But you know what? Best of luck to him. It seems like, gents, I'm going through all the negatives here and all the players who are leaving the club. Don't worry, folks. We have a long, long list of transfer targets to go through as well. But Christian, one last player that was linked to Liverpool that obviously won't be joining now is James Maddison, who's just signed for Leicester for a fee in and around between 22 to 25 million pound.
Yeah, and I think that basically says a lot how we might not were in that fight at all, because for such a low price, being such a young player, I think when Leicester got him for that cheap, it basically says that Liverpool weren't really into it. Or perhaps we were, but then he got injured and then we got cold feet. But he's a talented footballer player, and perhaps it could turn out to be a good signing for Leicester. Still, with players like Keita and Fabinho coming in to our team, he will be quite far away from a starting lineup at Liverpool.
Chris, originally it looked like he was going to sign for Southampton, but apparently Leicester being closer to his family home in Coventry area kind of swayed him towards that. But this could be a very shrewd piece of business by Leicester City.
Well, I think if we were really in for him, he would have gone to Southampton anyway, wouldn't he? So
that's the truth. Yeah, little stepping stone.
I didn't really think we were in for him anyway, to be honest. I don't think we've got room for too many project players. I think don't get me wrong, I know he's played a lot of first team games in the Championship and he's played very well, but it's a huge step up, not just to the Premiership, but to the sort of higher echelons of the Premiership in European football. And what we're looking for, I don't know. We don't know if he has, and I think 25 million is a lot of money to be throwing at a player on a maybe, because we've got those maybe players already, haven't we? Who's not to say that Woodburn couldn't have played for Norwich or whoever and popped 15 goals in and got a number of assists and finished Championship Young Player of the Year or something. So, if we're going to give young players a chance at Liverpool, I don't think we're spending 25 million on them. We're giving the chances to the kids we've got there already, aren't we?
Yeah, I think Norwich have also come out and said that they couldn't turn down, with the financial position they're in, they just couldn't turn down that type of money for a player who they'd love to keep, obviously. But 25 million to a Championship side, that's an awful lot of money, Chris.
That's a lot of money, and it helps them to build a side. I mean, ultimately, that's what they need to do at that level. You can have one star in your team in the Championship and get relegated. You need a good, solid team, and 25 million goes a long way to putting one of them together in the Championship, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. I've been doing a lot of live streams lately, guys, on YouTube, and the live streams tend to start about 9 o'clock and finish about 11. But what that means is that I'm often on there when tomorrow's news breaks, Christian, and the journals put out their 10:30 news. And something caught my eye last night when I was online. One of the subscribers brought up a link to Jack Grealish from Aston Villa. Have you seen this?
Well, I've seen him being linked to basically every club in Premier League since they didn't go up. I mean, he's a very talented player. I think most team in the Premiership would actually see him. They could perhaps create a diamond from what is. Am I thinking Liverpool is in for him? No, I don't.
Chris, how about you? I know he has Emre Can type hair, but could he be an Emre Can quality type footballer?
I don't know. I've seen him play quite a lot. He has got some quality. Again, I look at it the same way I look at Maddison. And he's probably got a few more games under his belt, and his stock's probably a little higher. But
his price seems to be a little lower, though. I mean, the figures I'm hearing mentioned are 15 to 18 million.
What's his contract situation? Has he got much on there? He might have had some kind of agreement with the club that if they don't go up, he gets a move or something. I don't know.
He probably had a clause in his contract that said if he has to spend a year with John Terry, then he can be let go at the end of it for a reasonable fee.
Probably. I don't know. It's just not a player I think we'd be interested in at this point. I really don't think it is. I think we're after. It sounds like him. We're after better quality. He may have all of the quality. He may one day be a good player, but I don't think we're after taking the chances at the moment.
I'm sure I've seen him linked to Spurs as well.
Spurs seem to do a lot of that kind of business, and they've done quite well at it. But I think that's ultimately why they've not taken that next step over the last few years and really done anything more than put the pressure on, which they like to seem to do. I don't want us to be Spurs and just keep putting the pressure on over the next 4 or 5 years. I want us to actually take that next step. So we need to perhaps be doing what Spurs weren't doing, and that's taking a chance on a not a chance, taking a chance, but throwing some money at a Fekir, for example, rather than two Maddisons or a Grealish and a Maddison, should I say. It can work out sometimes. It's not going to work out all the time, is it?
No, that's true. And Christian, the transfer story of the summer and the gift that keeps on giving to us is Nabil Fekir. And his agent teased Liverpool fans recently when he came out with a little bit of a statement about what might happen in this scenario.
Yeah, you can interpret it in two different kind of ways. You can, for one kind of angle, say that, the whole story hasn't been told. So maybe it's another club in for Fekir, like Paris Saint-Germain that made a bid for Fekir a while ago, but they said they won't sell to Paris. So there might be another part involved that we don't know about yet. So that could be one angle to say that, the medical kind of went good, so his physical condition won't be a problem for another deal. And the other way could be that maybe the deal kind of is done with Fekir and Liverpool and Lyon, and everything now is basically just for show, and the stock market might be more involved than we thought about the timing for this. What I don't like about this is that we have branded his physical condition with his knee problem, and now he has to sit and respond to that everywhere. And I'm not sure how happy he is about that, and how Liverpool has let information slip out.
I
So
question that though. Have we? I haven't. Liverpool
Not
haven't said a
really.
thing during this whole transfer saga. I think we're the only ones that have kept silent on it. If anything, it's Oulas and his agent that have spoken.
well, I'm not saying Liverpool per se, but when we saw the media coming out right after, it was Piers and Melissa Reddy and everybody that are quite connected to Liverpool that wrote what happened, and because of that,
We're saying though, they all said in their opinion and stressed that none of them said this is a fact. They said, in our opinion, this is the reason why this deal didn't go ahead.
that wasn't how I read it. It was perhaps how you read it, but that wasn't how I read it.
Word for word, Melissa Reddy said in an interview, voice by voice, these are my opinions. These are what we've put together based on the information that we've got. No, the information wasn't.
That's another thing. I'm talking about the tweet that came out from Melissa Reddy's Twitter account on the same evening.
There was certainly something came out, and I don't know, remember if it was from the Echo or somewhere where it said Liverpool got a second opinion because of his knee. That definitely came out in whether it be the Echo or it was James Pearce or Paul Joyce or Melissa Reddy, whoever it was. That definitely appeared in some online publication.
That's right. She took some stick for it, for saying, why have you said this? Or I think initially it was, why have you said this was pretty much a done deal then if it wasn't? To which she said, I was just giving you my opinion based on the information I got, in fairness. But the fact of the matter is Liverpool haven't done anything wrong to Fekir in terms of making people aware that he's got a physical condition. Because if he has a medical anywhere, then that medical condition shows. Irrespective of whether it's at Liverpool, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, a medical team finds that. So it doesn't matter. It just happened to be us that found it. I don't think there's anything wrong. But like Christian said, somehow it did come out. Like the finer details of it did come out, or as appeared to come out. But I don't think Liverpool can be blamed for that. And I don't think Leon can be blamed too much for their stance on it either. I think we've given Oulas a bit of stick, haven't we? But I don't think anybody's particularly done anything wrong here. I think it's just because we're all so frustrated that we all don't really know 100% what's happened, what's going on, what's happening next. That lots of stories, lots of opinions, lots of thoughts are flying around on it that are all different, and it just causes havoc. What we all like is Liverpool to come out and go, right, no, we're no longer interested in this player. We're looking elsewhere in the market, and then we all move on, and then Fekir can move on. But I'm looking at the comments made by his agent, which appear to be really ambiguous. But when you put that hand in hand with the comments made by the French Football Federation president, by the lack of comments from Liverpool Football Club, by the players' response to questioning on the subject, you add all that up, that really appears to me that there's still actually a lot of life left in this.
What really gets me though, Christian, is for the deal to have gone as far as it went, for the medical to have taken place, for a rumoured interview to have taken place, for him to have been pictured in Liverpool gear, whatever made this deal stall, it certainly hasn't helped Nabil Fekir. So whether it's Liverpool that are stalling it or Leon that are stalling it, he's going to be pissed off at somebody.
Yeah, he is. And I'm trying to think back in history. If a deal has been made later, when you fly out the player, you make the medical, it doesn't happen. The club says he won't be sold now. It might be later. And the club go back for him, even though he has a physical condition. I try to think about world history and about if I can remember any case that has the resemblance of that. And I can't. So this would be a first, I think, that this, when all of these rare occasions take place, and it will end up in a successful transfer story. However, I still think, as Chris said, I still think there's life in this. And there's one reason for this, and one reason only. Jurgen Klopp wants Fekir. And that's a really strong base to go further on with this transfer, even though his knee wasn't as good as they thought, even though Fekir might be a bit hurt at the moment, even though Lyon felt like they are in a new kind of a negotiation angle. I still think we haven't seen the last of this.
Chris, if it is Liverpool that have annoyed Nabil Fekir to an extent, I guess it's probably something that an extra 10 or 15 grand a week might soothe over if they decide to go ahead with the transfer.
Possibly, but who's saying he's annoyed?
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true.
You know what I mean? It's
all, and I suppose this story has made a lot of people look very silly, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he might have gone off to Russia knowing he's a Liverpool player.
That's true.
But for a few I's that need dotting and a few T's that need crossing. So, we don't know. That's all I can ever keep saying. I'm really boring when it comes to this stuff, because until I've seen it categorically what's happened or what's going to happen, then, I just think most of it's just, pardon my French, bullshit. But so it's... all I can do is offer an opinion based on what I've seen, and what I've seen so far is that it points towards there still being life in this, whether it comes to fruition or not. And Christian made the best point out of all of this. Jurgen Klopp wants the player. That's got to hold a lot of water, especially looking at the trajectory of Liverpool Football Club under Klopp. The owners are surely going to back whatever Klopp wants at this point. So I think that's massive. Yeah, it's a really good point to make. It's not even one I've not thought of that. I've looked at all the intricacies of it and thought, yeah, there's life in it, but that is perhaps the most important one.
Christian, France are 2 games into this World Cup now. Nabil Fekir has come on as a substitute, I believe, in both appearances. So far, it's been a pretty average World Cup from his health is holding up. Obviously, his knee is holding up. But there doesn't seem to be any signs yet that his transfer value is going to explode, if that's perhaps what Olas was hanging off for.
Yeah, and it wasn't. But what I said before as a response to Krista, why I said he's a bit annoyed perhaps, is that the first question or the second question of every interview he does now is, how is your knee? It's perhaps why he's annoyed. Coming down to, I think France is using Fekir wrong. I think it's very difficult for him to be at his best, and also he comes in when the other ones has failed, basically, or they have already killed off the game. But I think France hasn't been looking that good either. I think I thought better of them, and I think in a team where the stars aren't delivering and everything looks a bit slow, it's quite difficult to come in as one of the new coming stars and be the one that delivers, even though you want a lot and you want to be the one who level up the team. But no, he doesn't look like he's in a good match form at the moment.
We'll push on, guys, because no doubt we're going to revisit Nabil Fekir many times over the summer, because this one's going to keep going. Chris, the goalkeeping situation is certainly one that's of interest to pretty much every Red at this point. We've seen Leno, who signed for Arsenal recently, but there's 3 keepers that are making waves in the LFC gossip columns. The first one I want to have a little chat about is Nick Pope from Burnley. What's your thoughts on him?
I like him as a good goalkeeper. I only go back couple of months ago on one of the pods, I suggested we should probably go down to Burnley for either of their goalkeepers, to be honest. But I never thought of it from them coming in and being number 1 and perhaps being on number 1 for the next 10 years. I think that's a stretch. I don't know if Pope is that good. I think he's very good. He's perhaps got a very high ceiling. But Mignolet also looked very good before he signed, and so did Karius. And I'm just wondering if sometimes the pressure of being that player stood in front of the cop for 60 minutes with nothing to do, and then all of a sudden you're the difference between it being 0-0 against Manchester United or 1-0 down is too big for players to come from that level. it's the one position on the pitch you can't hide behind another player, and that's my worry. So I'm going against everything I've possibly said recently, but it's just things I've been thinking about, and perhaps going big for a goalkeeper from a big club, a big name from a big club, would be the best idea. And I honestly think that the club would look at it that way at this point. How many goalkeepers have we gone through where we've bought them from? I wouldn't say obscurity. That's unfair on a lot of the clubs we've signed players from. But Pepe Reina worked, but none of the others have. And I'm going all the way back to since Grobbelaar, maybe. We've not had any real top-notch keepers, and we've tried to build a project with a goalkeeper, and it's just not worked. I think we've got to change tact at long last, really, and I would kind of really hope that Pope wouldn't be it.
Christian, us over here in the UK and Ireland at times have often been accused of bigging up English or Irish players and overvaluing them. I wonder, to an extent, is the problem with Nick Pope, with some Liverpool fans, the exact opposite of that? The fact that he is English and we just deem English goalkeepers as not good enough?
I think he's a talented goalkeeper. I think perhaps a lot of the goalkeepers that are English and playing in the Premier League are doing it because they are English, not because they are the best goalkeepers. However, and that you can kind of see when you select your goalkeeper for your country, or the England. Sorry, Craig, you're Irish, but
it's even worse for us though. I have Darren Randolph, for fuck's sake.
But if I was going for one of these young English goalkeepers, Pope would probably be the one on my list that, and I agree with Chris. I think Burnley actually has two good of them goalkeepers, and they have all. What I also like is that Burnley, as a whole team, hasn't conceded many goals for a whole season. They have a manager that builds from behind, so he has been taught. Where the defensive system is very important, which means they are really focusing throughout the whole year on the defensive. And those teams, there are the goalkeepers really important. I think if we are going to have somebody that perhaps not is as good as Karius yet, but definitely has the chance to be. If we are going with that track, Pope is a good choice. But I'm kind of agreeing with Chris. I think we are in a state now that where we perhaps should look for a goalkeeper that are. I mean, if we are looking at next year's team, we will have a world-class attack, we will have a world-class midfield, and we will have a world-class defense. Why shouldn't the goalkeeper be perhaps our even strongest position?
Oh, it's music to my ears, Christian. That's exactly what I want to hear. My thoughts exactly. Chris, before I push on and come back to the next goalkeeper on the list, I just want to have a little chat about not just Nick Pope, but if we were talking about the likes of Jack Butland and even Simon Mignolet when he came to Liverpool, what I think affects a lot of goalkeepers coming into the club, particularly from lower clubs like a Sunderland or a Burnley, who are a very good football club, but they're clubs who are under a lot more pressure in games than Liverpool are. So I think part of the problem of a goalkeeper coming to a Liverpool and Manchester United is they're inactive for 85-90% of the game, and to be able to stay switched on for those one or two moments during the game that you're going to be needed, I think is actually more complicated, more difficult than people believe.
Well, it's pretty much what I was just saying when I said, you've got to stand there for 60 minutes with nothing to do. We don't actually concede many chances in a game. The number of chances we concede compared to the number of goals we concede I think must be one of the worst in the Premiership as a ratio. We can go a long time defending very well, and then all of a sudden we concede. And so people would point to a goalkeeper, for example, who makes a lot of saves. So let's pick on Jack Butland. We know he made more saves than anybody else in the Premiership last season. It's constant, it's repetitive, it's all game, every game. He's constantly in that zone where he's making saves. You take him out of that, it's a completely different kind of pressure, like you were saying. The pressure of being busy for 90 minutes compared to the pressure of not being busy, but that one save meaning an awful lot more in a game is massive. Yeah,
also, Chris, it's the distribution. It's the distribution when you get the ball. When Nick Pope gets the ball for Burnley, usually it's slow everything down, let the fullbacks push up, get everyone to the halfway line, and then launch a long ball, perhaps. Completely different at Liverpool.
I think in our system, distribution would be a massive help. I don't think it's the be-all and end-all, though. I think first and foremost, we need a goalkeeper who's going to stay concentrated and make saves. But the need for a goalkeeper who distributes the ball well isn't lost on me. I think that's massive. If you can get both, that's perfect for us. All I would say is, we've got players at the back who can move the ball very well. Lovren's very good at moving the ball. Van Dijk, there's not many centre-halves in the world who move the ball better than him. We've got full-backs who move the ball. We've got midfielders who can come back and do that. It's not a necessity, although it would be another string to our bow. I think Karius isn't bad at that, actually. He's quite good at getting the ball out, apart from in European Cup finals. His distribution has been quite good. But it goes to show that whilst a goalkeeper is on the front foot looking to get rid of the ball, it can also bring about mistakes as well. So, there's another edge to every sword. And I think first and foremost, when we get a goalkeeper, we need to make sure that he's a big personality, he can stay concentrated, and he can produce saves in big moments. I think that's the most important thing for us at the moment.
Christian, I have two more names to have a little discussion about the goalkeepers, and they're two rather hipster-type choices. So the first one I'm going to mention is Tomas Strakosha from Lazio, an Albanian goalkeeper, 23 years of age, and being honest, that's pretty much all I know about him.
Yeah, we talked about him last week, right? Or the week before. He's been linked. He's a good goalkeeper. I give him that. And I heard that the negotiation, or that, not negotiation, that's the wrong word, but our interest in him has increased, that we have really made an inquiry this time to Lazio. So perhaps there is some interest in this one. Will he be a huge upgrade from Karius? No, I wouldn't say so.
Yeah, Chris, this one seems a little bit unlikely to me, purely because it's fair enough we can say Alisson's only had 1 year in Serie A at the top level of football, but this keeper only came in as well because of an injury, I believe, to Lazio's first choice goalkeeper. So it seems very unlikely to me that he is the be-all and end-all, the solution to all our goalkeeping issues.
Yeah, he still played a high number of games in a year that Lazio did okay, didn't they? Didn't they? They just miss out on the top four.
Yeah, the story of why they missed out on the top four is absolutely priceless.
I know we could do a pod just on that, I suppose. And he's played in some high pressure games there. So he comes into that bracket where he's playing for a bigger club, where the fans have got a bigger expectancy. And yeah, it's not at the very, 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 very top, but it's certainly somewhere closer. So he fits that bill. He's been thrown into that pressure situation unexpectedly due to an injury. So he's clearly got a personality that suggests, he can handle these situations. So he's a little bit closer to that. But again, is it a case that he's just had one good season and, you're edging your bets on that continuing? Because we can't guarantee that. Although everybody's quite willing to see that happen with Alisson.
Yeah, it's nuts, isn't it?
In Roma, how many points did they finish above Lazio? Not many.
And I have to say, similar. I'm a hypocrite because I'm one of them.
Yeah, and it's so, on one hand, everybody will have a throwaway attitude to this goalkeeper. I've seen him play. Like you, I do watch Italian football. I've seen him play. He's perhaps what I was just on about. He's one of those goalkeepers where, first and foremost, he's a goalkeeper. He makes saves. He's got a big, wiry frame. I like the look of him as a goal. He reminds me of Courtois a little bit. He's from that kind of school of goalkeeping. I think he'd be a safe pair of hands on the face of things from what I've seen this season. What kind of fee?
25, I think 25 to 30 was the numbers I've seen banded around.
25, and that's what Leno just went to Arsenal for, isn't it? So I think, I think if we were paying under that, maybe you've got to think what you could possibly push for with Alisson. Would it be worth paying double that for Alisson? Or would you say he's perhaps on par? I don't know. Again, it's just one season, isn't it? It's difficult to say. If you'd done it for 3 or 4, maybe.
Yeah, it is tough. And Christian, the last goalkeeper that I want to have a chat about, and probably the newest link to the Liverpool goalkeeping situation, is Jiří Pavlenka from Werder Bremen.
Yeah, they say it's the new Peter Cech. He's had a really good season. I made an article about him yesterday, actually. And he came into Werder Bremen this year, and he's been really... his coach couldn't give him enough praise, and he will be the next one in line to become Czechia's new goalkeeper when Peter Cech retires. I think it could be a smart move to go for him. He's 25. He's good in positioning. He has quite agility as a goalkeeper, even though he's quite big. So yeah, I can see us. That could turn out to be a bargain to go for him, and he would be probably in the same range of money as the Albanian one.
Chris, did I read somewhere that Pavlenka has won an award this season in Germany for his goalkeeping exploits?
Exactly the same award that Karius won.
Yeah. So, yeah. but I mean, Karius,
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing just because Karius won it.
But I agree. When we talked about Karius before, what Karius has that all these goalkeepers don't have, when it comes down to counter-attack, he's probably one of the top 3 goalkeepers in the world to get the ball out the quickest. And we get a great counter-attack when he saves, and we can use all these other goalkeepers that we are looking at has to be educated to speed up their deliverance of, so to say, to get the first ball to the right person. Karius is really good at that.
He is, and that's one of the reasons I like seeing him in the side so much. And I do believe Pavlenka does that a little bit as well. I know Werder Bremen are a very attacking side. In fact, they're pretty much just an attacking side, aren't they? They just, that's all they do. They attack. So he'd be very used to sort of being open, being that pretty much that sweeper keeper, and having to get the ball out quick. And I think he's actually 26, not 25. Actually,
yeah, 25.
Is he? I thought I read that he was 26. I mean, even at 25, 26, he's another keeper who's pretty much only just come through, hasn't he? He's not been around a while. I know I know, like you just said, Christian, he's bordering on being first choice now for Czech Republic. So I don't know how he's gone so far under the radar. How we're only just really hearing about him. I don't think he's done a lot sort of in the top flight for a long time. So again, there's still some way to go as to for it to become clear whether he's the right keeper for us. But all you've got to think about with all of this is, if Klopp's willing to go for him or any of the goalkeepers we mentioned, then surely they're the right keeper.
As long as his name's Alisson Becker.
I just can't see him being willing to make a mistake with a goalkeeper. And I also include the possibility of him even keeping Karius in there, and that if that's what he chooses to do. he's not going to make a mistake. I think this is it's a pivotal time right now, and you can see that by the business we've already done or even tried to do with regards to Fekir and Fabinho. So I don't think he'd be messing about. If for example, Pavlenka was the keeper he made a bid for, and that's who we brought in, I'd be damn sure that he's the right goalkeeper for us.
I'd agree with everything you said there, up to the point of Carrier starting in goal next season for us. That's where my belief would start to wane a little bit, if I'm being honest. I back Jurgen Klopp on pretty much everything, but that would worry me a bit. There's a couple more incomings, gents, that we can have a little chat about before we move on to some possible outgoings. And Christian, one link that seems to be exciting Liverpool fans, and I don't know if it's because of the situation at his parent club or if it's just because I like him as a player, but Gelson Martins of Sporting Lisbon, or maybe formerly of Sporting Lisbon, is a player who seems to be of interest.
Well, the Gelson Martins deal is something that Klopp perhaps didn't. It wasn't perhaps Klopp's first target, but when he got available, all of a sudden it's another tool for Klopp to use when we are going to play many games, and perhaps he could be. It's said that we have cooled the interest a bit in Shaqiri, and perhaps he will turn out to be the player we are going for instead there.
Well, I think I spoke to you about this before, Christian, but what always worries me about all these links to Sporting Lisbon players is just the legal situation that's going to happen at Sporting Lisbon, and I can't imagine anybody signing their players for free. I just can't imagine that scenario happening at all.
They're not their players, though, are they? That's the thing.
That's what I just can't believe that it'll be allowed to happen. That Sporting Lisbon are just going to say, okay, this happened, we're going to allow you to cancel your contract, and there will be no appeal or no tribunal or anything like that.
I think it's employment law. I mean, I'm assuming that they are governed by the same employment laws that we are within the EU. And if they have a right to terminate their own contracts under whatever circumstances in which they did, then that's what they've done, and that makes them a free agent. And I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah, but what has the club done to them? I believe they were attacked at the training ground by a group of 50 masked fans. Is that really the club's fault? You can look at obviously security issues there, but can that be predicted?
It's besides the point. Failure to keep your employees safe straight away. You only have to pick any job, pick any employee handbook up and have a look in there. I promise you, there's every single reason you can think of to get out of your employment.
It's usually the other way around. It's usually to protect everything is in there to protect your employer.
No, there's far more laws and legislation in place to protect the employee than there is the employer. But that's in the UK, but I'm assuming it's pretty much the same. They pretty much all come down from the EU, don't they? But anyway, I mean that's by for by. The fact of the matter is, if that player is available, if he's made himself available by terminating his contract, and then he signs a contract with another club, I don't think there's an awful lot Lisbon could do from a legal standpoint anyway, other than perhaps claim damages, i.e., that this is what we should have for the player based on his current market value, so on and so forth. So that would be decided.
He's only 23 years of age as well.
He is, isn't he? He's still young.
I thought he was around a lot longer than that.
I don't know what his contract situation is, but if that was the case and it went down that route, that would be decided by a tribunal, I would imagine.
If there's one thing, guys, that we know about FSG, it's that they have a damn good legal team, as was shown when they purchased the club.
Well, the way they purchased us tells us a lot about the way they do business, and they do it by being smart, really, don't they? Everything they do seems to be smart. Whether we agree with it or not, they're not overspending on anything. They're going to try and save as much money as they can on every deal that they make, which again, we could look at the Fekir deal and think that that's what's going on there. But ultimately, they do look to get the business done. So this just there's just way too much opportunity here for us to not look at it. In my opinion, I think we've got it's a player that our Edwards was part of our. He's been part of the team, hasn't he? There since when did he come in? Was it 2011? It was when Kamali came in. I don't know if he was part of the actual transfer committee or whatever it was called at the time, but I know we were interested in Gelson Martins quite a while back. So surely there's something there. Edwards has been part of a team that's gone looking for this player before, and I think we were priced out of it. They wanted something like 35 million or something. We weren't looking to pay more than 20.
I do remember those links.
Can't remember the exact year we went after him, and that's only been a couple of years ago.
I think it was a January link.
Quite possibly. I just remember us going after him. I remember doing a lot of, I started watching him as much as I possibly could because I thought we were going to sign him. It looked almost nailed on at the time. So it's not really that much of a stretch, is it, to think that Edwards is leading a charge to go back in for the player here?
No, it's not. And Christian, he does take a lot of the boxes, as Chris has said there. He's young. He can play anywhere across the front three. He can play wide. It does seem to take boxes. So it's understandable that there may well be genuine interest in the player.
Yeah, I can see that. However, it's not a Klopp signing. Klopp is not a manager that usually discovers somebody who turned up to the market that they didn't think. He has decided what players they are going for, and they are going for them right away, not by what kind of events takes place in different clubs. So because it's perhaps not the Klopp signing, it maybe cools down the interest level or the likeliness that he will join us. He's still a good player, and he is available in the market. That we know. How big of an interest it is, and if he's a Klopp kind of a player, we don't know.
Surely at times, though, you do have to be reactionary to the market, and we've seen their links to Xherdan Shaqiri, and a lot of them came about because it's rumoured that he had a £12.5 million release clause, which suddenly made him attractive. Gelson Martins, if on a free transfer, obviously he would have to have a signing on bonus and all that type of stuff, but surely he might have been somebody that Klopp just looked at when he became available. I mean, nobody could have predicted what happened with the Sporting Lisbon contract situation.
Of course, but if you go to history and you check out Jurgen Klopp's transfers, you won't find many of them all of a sudden there's an opportunity to sign this player kind of deals done. He go for the target he wants. That's it.
Another player, Chris, that's been linked to Liverpool, and I feel like we spoke about this guy before, and I have said it time and time again, he just doesn't do it for me, and that's Malcolm of Bordeaux.
I think he's a highlight player, isn't he? A match of the day player. He'll do something that looks amazing, and then he'll just be distantly average for a good chunk of a game. But I've got to be honest with you now. I think I'm with you on that. He doesn't really do an awful lot for me. You've got to think a bit like Gelson Martins there as well. Actually, I could liken him. I could say pretty much the same about him. He's got a lot of those attributes that you look for in a player that you think would fit in this side. And that, I think you've got to back your coach, haven't you? And think, can they coach them and get them mentally and physically ready to do it for 90 minutes week in, week out? If they can, you've got yourself a good player. I think it's as simple as that. Just coming back onto what Christian said there as well about Klopp. Again, this link here, this doesn't look like a typical Klopp signing. But what I also need to point out is not all of the players Klopp signed, Klopp has asked for. I think he's openly said that with a couple of players.
Mo Salah being pretty evident on that one.
Mo Salah's one. Solanke was another one. In fact, he'd only ever seen Solanke play on video clips shown to him by the transfer team there at Anfield. So he is open to suggestion, clearly. Although I do think the final say is Klopp's, isn't it? I think if they go to him and they're like, we want this player, he's available, take a look at him, he'll run the rule over it and say whether he wants him or not. And then I just think it comes down then. I think Klopp has to meet the player then, doesn't he, and see what he thinks of the man rather than the player. So we can look at a player like Malcolm, we can look at a player like Martins and go, yeah, they tick all these boxes. They're young, all the pace in the world, skills, can stick the ball in the top bin from 25 yards every now and again. Tick, 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 tick. What we don't know though is when they sit down in front of Klopp, whether they're going to impress him as a man, as a person. So that's something else we need to look for. So another player who looks decent, looks good, but I've not really seen him do it week in, week out, game in, game out. So it'd be underwhelming. I'd call him a Spurs signing. I don't mean to disrespect Spurs too much, but I'd call him a Spurs signing.
Christian, I've seen certain players who've been linked with big moves for a couple of years. I'm talking about the likes of William Carvalho here, and for me, Malcolm falls into that bracket of a player that seems to always be linked to a big club, but the move just hasn't happened yet. Nobody's pulled the trigger.
Yeah, I actually think if he will go somewhere to Premier League this year, it will be Arsenal. And it could turn out to be, how do you say, a bit of a scary situation for the clubs in Premier League, that their coach has got so many players already. And if they turned out to be good signings, all of a sudden Arsenal are a good team. Or they will be another failed project this year. And then perhaps Malcolm would be in that line. But if he keeps scouting the way I think he does at the moment, I think Malcolm could turn out to be a good player for Arsenal. Would he be a good player at Liverpool? Perhaps if we educate him, perhaps if we lower his lowest performances. I think when he is at his best, and as Chris says, he can score fantastic goals and he ticks all the boxes. But at the same time, he could have been read by the opponents quite easily. And I think perhaps I don't think we are looking at Malcolm. I think we are looking elsewhere.
From the Arsenal link, what makes me doubt it is the prices that we're seeing quoted for Malcolm is the high 30s, 40 million quid, and we've seen Arsenal struggling to pay a £25 million release clause for a Torreira. They had to extend that. I think they paid 30 million or something to do it in installments, and we've seen them bring in Liechtensteiner, who's an aging right back. Leno, and they just spent 25 million quid for, and it's been kind of...
And Socrates.
And it's been kind of rumoured, though, that he only had around 50 million quid to play around with before sales, obviously, so his budget looks pretty tight at the minute.
Yeah, we don't know about that. I mean, they got Socrates as well, right? For
Socrates. Is it Socrates or Socrates? I always get that guy's name mixed up. When you said Socrates, my mind went back, obviously, years there.
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
Back to ancient Greece.
Isn't he very injury prone, though?
Perhaps he is, but I mean, if he's a Dortmund central defender, and he's been playing for Greece in a lot of years, so. No, I think it's a good signing for them. I think all of the signings for Arsenal, I mean, they are not like, what do you call him, like one of the high-level signings of the world, but they are quite good signings, and they are looking to become a bit more solid as a team.
Smart signings in areas that they need them.
Yeah, I think they are.
I think that's exactly what I was going to say. Chris Unai Emery seems to be addressing the positions that are obvious weaknesses. Whether he has to do,
he's come in knowing what needs to be done, almost, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, you can look at Liechtensteiner and think that maybe he's seen a short-term fix there for the problem until he has a look at the youth system, or until he really works his budget in the future and sees what he can bring in, because he is a winner, but 34 years of age.
Well, to be honest with you, if we went out and got Buffon, would you complain, or Cassius at their age, as a short-term fix while we can look for another Alisson, for example, for a long-term fix, maybe next summer. I've got no problem with that if it works. It's whatever you think will work. They've got themselves a decent manager there, haven't they? And he's come in and he's plugging gaps where they had gaps, and it looks quite smart business. I'm expecting
Emery as well knows how to win the Europa League, Chris, so that could be a route into the Champions League for them.
Well, it could. It's very realistic as well, isn't it? I mean, I don't. We've done that, haven't we? The years in the Europa League and how that disrupts your Premier League campaign, and I expect that to be exactly the same for them next season. But I do think they could go all the way in that competition, and they've got Aubameyang for a full season, and he's going to take some stopping next season. I think he looked good the last few months of this season just gone. So, I'm expecting them to do quite well. Really,
I'm expecting them to bottle it in the later rounds. But look, we'll push on, and who cares about Arsenal? This is a Liverpool podcast. We went a little bit off track. Christian, there's a couple of links to players going out as well. A couple of younger players. You mentioned to me just before we start recording that Shea Ojo has been linked with a move away.
Yeah, and not a loan move. I mean, what I heard, both him and Ryan Kent are Liverpool kind of looking to sell, which was news to me. I thought perhaps even one more loaned out year for them and to take part in the preseason and Klopp study them some more. But I think he has so many options turning up for him both in the market from other youngsters like Brewsters and players that Wilson that they perhaps didn't thought were the ones they were going for, that turned out to be the ones that, oh wow, these are really the good the players that are closest to be part of the team. And also, what is that guy called who never gets a work permit?
Alan Sousa, something de Sousa, Alan Rodriguez, or something like that.
And he, I heard that he will go for another loan next year as well.
Where is he? Is he going to send with the Faroe Islands or something this year? Because he was in fucking Greece or something, or Cypriot League or something ridiculous, wasn't he?
Well, I hope it would be in somewhere where he develops, because it's a very critical moment for him now to become a Liverpool player at all. Otherwise, it will just be a lot of paperwork for this player, as it seems.
I wondered why they didn't just send him into the Portuguese league, Christian. It would have made perfect sense to send him out there on loan. I'm sure they could have found a club that would have taken him. Yeah,
I think Sporting Lisbon are looking for players.
I'd well imagine that they are looking for a few players. One player we have seen, a youth player, Chris, commit himself to Liverpool Football Club, and this is pretty big news, and we may have touched on it in previous podcasts, but Ryan Brewster's agreeing his first professional contract with Liverpool Football Clubs. I mean, we can't understate how important this is.
I know, and then all of a sudden there's linking him to Spurs and all sorts, isn't there, out of nowhere, because he hasn't straight away put pen to paper. I think it'll happen. I think he will stay. I'm pretty sure he's had a good sit down with Klopp, and Klopp's detailed, what he's looking from from him.
Well, we know, Chris, he can't go to Spurs. We know we won't see him going anywhere this year because the club do have an option to exercise that 1 year extension of his youth contract.
I think if they did that, they're just basically saying, no, just going to keep you here by spite for a year, and then he'll be off anyway. So I think it's got to happen by mutual consent. If he's going to stay, it's because he wants to stay, and it's because we want him. So I think if he had any intention of going, they'd just let him go. I don't think they'd activate that for no reason, for any other reason. I've got to admit, I do like the look of the play. And when you look at players like Ojo, who have come in and shown promise in the past, and looked like they were useful members of the first team at times as well, it goes to show you how far we've come. And it also perhaps goes to show you just how much stock we've put in players like Ryan Brewster, or Ryan Brewster. I'm not sure if I pronounced his name right there. He's clearly head and shoulders above your Shea Ojos, for example, isn't he? Otherwise, we wouldn't be looking at this situation. Although there is a bit of an age difference now. I don't know how old Shea Ojo is now. I think he's been like 18 for the last 4 years or something, hasn't he?
Well, we've seen how highly Jurgen Klopp thinks of him, because when he went to give his speech for Mo Salah winning the Footballer of the Football Player Writers Award, the Football Player of the Year, I can't remember which one it was, so I just went on a bit of a ramble there. We've seen Jurgen Klopp mention Ryan Brewster in his speech and praising him to the hilt.
It says a lot. This is what I like about Klopp as well. He always does that. When the spotlight's being shone on one player, he redirects it to another who he feels at that time needs it. So when Mo Salah was getting all the plaudits, he banged the Mane drum. When Mane was getting all the plaudits, he banged the Firmino drum, didn't he? And I think
what a man!
He's brilliant at it. He does it all the time. Everyone talking about VVD, I'll talk about Lovren, and he does it all the time, and it works.
It's fairly quiet on Mignolet, though, to be fair.
Well, even Klopp's got his limits. And I think with this, everybody's talking about drop-offs, and he's got his finger on the pulse. We know he listens. He does listen to Liverpool media and read Liverpool media, and by that I don't just mean like national media. I mean Liverpool
the Anfield agenda is what you mean. Come on, be honest.
He must do.
If you're listening, Jurgen, we love you.
If he isn't listening, he should.
And we still love
him. But he's got his finger on the pulse, I think. And when he's hearing talk of drop-offs and is needing this player and that player and the other player, and then that player starts thinking about the possibility of leaving to get guaranteed first-team football, he's jumped on there straight away, hasn't he, and built this lad up and give him confidence that he's being thought about in terms of the first team. So it's a smart move there by Klopp, and it's a smart move by Liverpool to keep patience with him and not just have a throwaway attitude towards him looking the other way. Because it's human nature, isn't it, to see grass greener on the other side sometimes. So, he's had a look, and he's clearly had a sit down with Klopp, and he saw sense. And I'm really chuffed about it because I've got a lot of time for Brewster. He looks a really good player, albeit if he did want to go, and Klopp had told him that you're not going to get too many opportunities next season, then you just wave him off and wish him the best, wouldn't you? But clearly he's in Klopp's sights for a few first-team games next season.
Christian, I've listened to Melissa Reddy speak about Ryan Brewster and speak about the possibilities that were there for Ryan Brewster, and she was mentioning that there was a lot of European clubs very interested in taking him to their club. And I suppose Jurgen Klopp can point to Trent Alexander-Arnold this season and say, look, there is a path there. Young players can make it through to the first team. I know you're good enough. You know you're good enough. Just look at Trent. This could be you next season.
I think that the importance of this was that we were about to do a revert Solanke kind of history. Chelsea were too late by saving Solanke and signing up for a contract before it was too late. They didn't really understand what was happening until Liverpool fixed this. And we send out a statement now that you can't really be doing that to Liverpool. We know our own talents, and they know that we are looking at them. If he would have gone to another club, more clubs would look at our academy and see possibilities instead of now that it will be difficulties to get players. And that's a statement I really like, that Brewster staying will become.
There's a couple more players linked with moves away from the club, and we really need to just, I suppose, gloss over these and push on. We've seen Danny Ings apparently linked with Crystal Palace. We spoke about Marko Grujic last week having links to both Cardiff and Lazio. But Christian, to finish up the podcast, is it a subject you want us to have a little chat about? And I believe it's World Cup based.
Yeah, I kind of seen a new movement that I haven't seen really since 2005 when we beat one of the best teams in the world ever with two playmakers. Liverpool's the big part of the glory with Rafa Benitez' team was that he had both Xavi Alonso and Steven Gerrard playing next to each other as playmakers. And then kind of Real Madrid has refined that method, playing with Luka Modric and Toni Kroos. And now we're seeing Croatia doing it with Rakitic and Modric. And it's so smart to be playing with two playmakers at the same time, who both will deliver great passes from different areas. The deliveries from these two players against Argentina today, it's just fantastic. But I was actually studying them already in the first game, and to see all of a sudden Modric can run wide and he will get a lot of attention, and it opened up to Rakitic. Rakitic would move forward and then put the ball to Mandzukic or whoever are in a good position. And it's quite interesting to study how they interact with each other and how they are moving. And both are very good defensively as well. But I think we might see a glimpse of what the team needs to do to become one of the best ones. To use two players who can set up plays and not be as limited as to have one playmaker, because it's too easy to analyze. So I think this method will prove Croatia and take them quite long in this tournament. And perhaps this is a secret to why Real Madrid and Ronaldo and all these players up there get so good deliveries, because of the movement of the midfielders, the player on the central. And I think perhaps it was the start of that kind of playing when Liverpool played with Alonso and Gerrard.
Christian makes an excellent point there about Croatia, and I suppose we spoke about dark horses before on one of our podcasts, and we never mentioned Croatia as possible dark horses for the tournament. Perhaps we overlooked them, or did we? Go on.
No, I mean, I remember me and Dave, we mentioned Croatia and Serbia as being they look two sides full of solid professionals with a smattering of class in there as well, just to see them through. And it's showing, isn't it? I think Croatia more so than Serbia by the looks of it. I don't expect Croatia to be as good as they have been. And it's interesting now what Christian said about the way they set up with the two playmakers. Now, whether it's 2, 1 or 3, I don't think it matters. I don't think there's any finite way of playing football that gets you results. I mean, Brazil have done it playing with 10 playmakers for a number of years, didn't they? So what impresses me the most with it, it's not only how have they got this system of playing that suits them, but every single player seems to know their job. Every player, like Christian pointed out, when one player makes one run, another player knows to make another run or fill in, so on and so forth. And that just comes down to continuity. And that's something you don't tend to see an awful lot of in international football. To me, it's like watching a club side who play and train every day, season in, season out. They look like they all know what they're doing and they all know each other. It's quite amazing, really. And I think that just comes down to them all being, real good, solid pros all over the pitch. They're surprising the hell out of me. They look fantastic tonight. Really did.
They have a little bit of everything, don't they, gents? I mean, they have a little bit of steel, they have a little bit of guile, they have a lot of footballing intelligence, they have older players, they've got some younger players coming through, they have a good quality goalkeeper who's been around for a while, and they have one of the best midfielders currently playing his trade, Christian, in Europe, and Luka Modric.
Yeah, and him together with Rakitic, who is almost equally as good, or today he looked perhaps even better, which is almost impossible since Modric had the perfect game. But my take wasn't on Croatia per se. It's about the using of the two playmakers. If I wanted to salute Croatia, we should not forget to mention Lovren, because he's turning out to be quite the centre back nowadays.
He was excellent for Croatia. 2 games into the tournament, yet to concede a goal, and Dejan Lovren has made some very telling interceptions.
Without Van Dijk as well. Who'd have thought that?
Absolutely.
He can defend on his own. You wouldn't have thought that at all, would you? He is playing very well. But again, it's amazing what confidence can do for any player. You know, he looked void of confidence earlier this season. And then, I don't know what happened. We don't know if it was just a conversation with Klopp. He may have just come back in the side, had one good game and then never looked back. Who knows? But he's clearly a player playing with confidence, and he's taken that into the World Cup. And if we get this Lovren for a full season next season, injury-free, alongside Van Dijk, then I don't think it matters whether we keep Karius in goal or not, to be honest.
Christian, I actually want to ask you something about this style of play. We look at this Liverpool team that we have now, and there's no doubting the creative talent that we have in the team and the pace that we have in the team. But to have 2 players, and I suppose we could almost compare Jordan Henderson to an extent to one of these hard-working players with a little bit of guile, but it does seem like that may be a system that Jurgen Klopp would lean towards, having those 2 workhorses, water carriers, whatever you want to call them in midfield, allowing everybody else around them to express themselves. Certainly seems like a Jurgen Klopp tactic.
Well, Jurgen Klopp is a little bit different, but if I'm looking at Fabinho, who is a very solid player, Keita is quite different than these players. He's playing. He's all over the place. He runs so much, but he doesn't play by playing and setting up long crosses like both Rakitic and Modric can do to change the flow of the game. Henderson is more that kind of a player. However, Henderson doesn't react on instinct. He reacts into a pattern, what he normally does. And he knows how to do exactly from if everything works out in that. But if you see him playing against players like Modric and Kroos, like he did in the Champions League, you see how limited he is when it comes down to become a playmaker against the best ones in the world. I mean, it was a very tough situation, I know, but I'm saying the next midfielder Liverpool who we're going to use could perhaps be a playmaker, a pure playmaker, or a Milner or a Wijnaldum that runs as much as Keita or whatever. But our midfield is not looking like the ones that they are setting up when you look from what abilities our midfielders has.
Gentlemen, we're going to have to leave it there for this week. It's been an excellent podcast. My God, we've got through some amount of work and some amount of links. As always, a massive thank you to Christian and to Chris for taking the time to join me, and to you guys for listening. We'll be back next week with another Transfer Talk podcast, and no doubt there'll be a lot more links then. Thank you all for listening. Take care. Good night.